Sudan's recent history stands as one of the most complex and troubled political landscapes in the modern world, shaped by intersecting layers of ethnic tension, environmental stress, uneven development, competing armed factions, foreign intervention, and the relentless pursuit of wealth hidden beneath its soil. From the eruption of conflict in Darfur in 2003 to the nationwide struggle unfolding in the present day, the country has experienced cycles of violence that continually reshape its borders, its governing structures, and its social fabric. Beneath each of these cycles lies a powerful economic undercurrent: gold. This precious resource, abundant in parts of Sudan, yet scarcely reflected in the livelihoods of ordinary citizens, has become both the prize and the fuel for armed movements, political elites, and foreign patrons. It slips away in informal shipments across desert frontiers, quietly transferred aboard cargo planes, blended into other markets, and absorbed into international financial systems in ways that obscure its origins. The conflict that began decades ago has evolved into a complex panorama of competing militaries, militias, and external actors, each positioning itself to control the country's wealth. This video traces the evolution of Sudan's conflict, beginning in the early 2000s and moving through the shifting alliances and fractures that continue to shape the country today. It follows the story of a nation where the discovery of valuable resources promised prosperity, but instead deepened divisions, magnified inequalities, and intensified the ambitions of those who sought political dominance. The narrative explores how gold became entangled in the conflict, why it disappears through illicit channels, and how its extraction shaped decisions made in distant capitals as well as within Sudan's towns, villages, and military barracks. What emerges is a portrait of a nation caught between hope and hardship, where communities endure the consequences of rivalries forged at points of power far removed from their own lives. Through these chapters, the trajectory of Sudan's conflict becomes clearer. A conflict rooted in grievances of marginalization, transformed by armed struggle, and now entrenched in an economic contest for control of a resource that should have uplifted an entire nation. When the conflict in Darfur erupted in 2003, the region was already marked by deep inequalities that stretched back for generations. Darfur's communities lived with limited access to political representation, economic development, and state protection. As droughts became more frequent and fertile lands diminished, competition over pastures and farmland intensified. Tensions between settled farming groups and pastoral communities escalated, magnified by the government's uneven distribution of resources and its failure to address grievances that had mounted for decades. Armed opposition movements emerged in response, driven by a combination of political frustration and fear of disappearing livelihoods. In turn, the central government relied on local militias that operated alongside the national army, a structure that gave rise to fighting forces drawn from tribes already at odds with one another. These militias gained influence rapidly and reshaped the dynamics of the conflict. Darfur's vast deserts, rugged terrain, and remote settlements made it an ideal environment for a prolonged struggle. As violence intensified, displacement became widespread, causing large populations to move into camps with minimal services and uncertain futures. The government's strategy relied on mobilizing proxies rather than investing in lasting solutions, allowing the conflict's roots to deepen despite temporary lulls in hostilities. Although gold was not yet the driving economic factor in Darfur at this stage, the foundations of resource-based competition were already being laid. The networks forged between armed groups and regional actors would later shape the flow of minerals, money, and power that defined the next decade of Sudan's history. The mid-2000s brought major political reorganizations within Sudan. The signing of the Comprehensive Peace Agreement in 2005, which aimed to end the separate civil war between the North and South, introduced new power-sharing arrangements and shifted national priorities. While much attention was directed toward preparing for South Sudan's future referendum, Darfur's conflict remained unresolved. In these years, Sudan's leadership became increasingly focused on safeguarding its power amid shifting alliances and internal rivalries. The government expanded its connections with regional actors who offered both political backing and economic opportunities. As global gold prices rose steadily, attention turned toward Sudan's underdeveloped mining areas. Informal mining operations expanded rapidly, drawing thousands of young men into the desert in search of wealth. The government, military leaders, and local commanders recognized the potential, creating networks to benefit from the informal trade. This period marked the slow but steady integration of gold into the political economy of conflict. Although extraction was often unregulated and chaotic, gold became a new source of revenue. Militias operating in remote areas began to levy informal taxes on miners and transporters, while state-aligned actors developed arrangements that allowed gold to move across the country with minimal oversight. A system was emerging in which access to the resource depended on military strength rather than institutional governance. The patterns of violence established earlier now merged with economic incentives, transforming armed groups from primarily political actors into custodians of territorial economic assets. The seeds of Sudan's future battles over gold were being planted, though few yet understood how dramatically these resources would later reshape the country's balance of power. South Sudan's independence in 2011 brought dramatic changes to the region. The creation of the new state also meant the loss of most of Sudan's oil reserves, leaving the country economically weakened and politically exposed. Leadership in Khartoum sought new sources of revenue to stabilize its finances and maintain its influence, turning more aggressively toward mineral wealth. This shift accelerated the expansion of gold mining. New deposits were identified, and informal mining settlements grew at extraordinary speed. In many areas, miners lived with minimal infrastructure, relying on their own tools, local traders, and negotiation with those who controlled the land. Although the government nominally regulated mining, much of the real power lay in the hands of armed factions with the ability to enforce their interests. During this period, the influence of the Rapid Support Forces expanded. Emerging from older militia structures, they became a central instrument for national power brokers, who saw their utility not only in military operations, but also in securing crucial economic corridors. Their rise signaled a shift in Sudan's political landscape. Power became increasingly dependent on command over mobile, loyal forces capable of operating in remote areas, including regions rich in mineral resources. Darfur remained unstable, and sporadic violence continued. Communities that had already endured years of hardship watched as new interests entered their territories, this time drawn by gold. Tunnels dug by artisanal miners revealed deposits of considerable value, but the benefits flowed outward through opaque networks rather than uplifting local populations. South Sudan's independence may have reduced the scale of earlier North-South conflict, but it left behind new fractures and accelerated competition for the remaining natural wealth. A competition that would soon intensify even further. By the mid-2000s, Sudan experienced an unprecedented gold boom. Artisanal mining sites in Darfur, South Kordofan, and other regions drew tens of thousands of workers. Their efforts produced significant gold, which the state struggled to channel into official export systems. Market prices on the international stage made gold a highly attractive commodity, and this lured powerful actors into establishing control over mining zones. The informal networks expanded rapidly. Traders purchased gold directly from miners, bypassing state regulation. Aircraft carried shipments from remote airstrips. Trucks crossed lightly monitored desert borders. Gold traveled north toward Egypt, west toward Chad, or east toward the Red Sea in ways designed to avoid taxation and scrutiny. Once it entered foreign refining systems, the gold's origins became nearly impossible to trace, blending seamlessly into the global supply chain. Foreign actors gradually increased their involvement, drawn by the opportunity to gain economic advantage or extend strategic influence. Some provided political backing or military equipment to Sudanese factions in exchange for privileged access to mining sites or export channels. The profits offered a lifeline to armed groups. Gold revenues strengthened their bargaining power not only against rivals, but also within the national political arena. Leaders who controlled these networks used the resource to secure personal wealth, reward allies, and purchase equipment. Communities near mining areas often faced environmental degradation and social strain. Tensions rose between miners and local residents. Mining sites became zones of fragile order, maintained through the authority of the strongest force present. Through this era, Sudan's conflict became increasingly intertwined with its mineral wealth. Gold that should have funded national development instead disappeared into private networks stretching across borders. With each shipment, the prospects of a peaceful, stable Sudan receded further. By the late 2000s, widespread dissatisfaction reached a breaking point. Economic hardship intensified, partly because the wealth generated by gold failed to reach the broader population. Public frustration grew as inflation surged and basic goods became difficult to afford. Mass demonstrations emerged, led largely by civilians demanding political reform, economic stability, and an end to entrenched systems of corruption. The change in leadership that followed created an uncertain transition. Sudan entered a period in which civilian groups and military leaders were expected to share power and chart a new national course. This arrangement was fragile from the outset. The political landscape was crowded with competing interests, including long-established military institutions, newly empowered factions, and civilian coalitions with diverse objectives. Gold continued to shape decision-making behind the scenes. Control of mining sites, export routes, and financial networks remained essential for those seeking leverage in the political transition. While public discourse centered on governance reforms, the hidden struggle for economic control persisted within military and political circles. Communities across Sudan experienced a cautious sense of hope during this period, yet the foundations of conflict remained intact. No institution had full control over the armed groups that operated independently across vast regions. The unresolved issues that had fueled earlier conflicts remained unaddressed, and new tensions arose as shifting political alliances contributed to a sense of instability. The country stood at a crossroads, offering a rare glimpse of potential change. Yet beneath the surface, the competition for gold and authority was already shaping the course of events that would soon unravel the fragile transition. The early 2020s brought a new stage in Sudan's conflict, this time centered not on regional insurgencies, but on rivalries within the national security apparatus itself. Tensions between major armed institutions grew increasingly visible. Both sides maintained their own command structures, revenue streams, recruitment systems, and foreign connections. Gold played a central role in the contest. One faction derived significant wealth from mining areas and associated export channels, granting it substantial financial autonomy. Another faction relied on state institutions and traditional military networks. Their interests diverged sharply, and overlapping jurisdictions became flashpoints for confrontation. As disputes escalated, the country's transition toward civilian governance faltered. Attempts to integrate armed forces under a unified structure encountered resistance. Each faction calculated its position based on its economic base, political alliances, and access to resources. By the time open conflict erupted, gold-rich regions had already become strategic zones. Control of airstrips, border crossings, and mining corridors proved as crucial as control of cities. The economic logic of conflict ensured that the struggle would continue even as humanitarian conditions deteriorated. Communities that had hoped for peace found themselves once again navigating instability. Movement became dangerous, access to essential services diminished, and displacement rose. The country's infrastructure suffered, affecting markets, schools, and hospitals. Yet the smuggling networks endured. Gold continued to leave Sudan, even as the nation endured turmoil. Foreign actors, drawn by long-standing partnerships or strategic interests, maintained ties with one faction or another, offering diplomatic support or material assistance. This involvement further complicated efforts to resolve the conflict. For every attempt at negotiation, new pressures emerged from the hidden economy that underpinned the struggle. Sudan's gold leaves the country through routes shaped by geography, political alliances, and the reach of armed groups. Much of the gold extracted in remote areas begins its journey at informal trading hubs, where buyers operate with little oversight. Traders move it through desert corridors that cross into neighboring states, using pathways that avoid established checkpoints. From there, the gold travels to refineries or export points outside Sudan. The lack of traceability in the global gold market means that once Sudanese gold is melted and mixed with other batches, its origins effectively disappear. It enters supply chains connected to financial centers, jewelry markets, or industrial manufacturers around the world. Foreign actors often play key roles in facilitating these networks. Some provide logistical support, transportation, or access to external markets. Others offer political protection in exchange for a share of the profits or strategic influence. These arrangements vary widely, but they share one common feature: the ability to operate beyond the reach of Sudan's formal institutions. The disappearance of gold represents a significant loss for Sudan's economy. Revenue that could fund public services or infrastructure instead supports private ventures or conflict-related expenditures. The state's inability to regulate extraction and export deepens mistrust among citizens, who see the wealth of their country slipping away, while essential resources grow increasingly scarce. This system also shapes the behavior of armed groups. The promise of revenue motivates them to maintain control over mining areas and transportation routes. Even when temporary ceasefires occur, the underlying economic drivers persist, making it difficult to transform fragile truces into sustainable peace. Gold, more than any other commodity, embodies the contradictions of Sudan's modern history. Immense potential bound to entrenched systems of inequality and conflict. The pursuit of gold has had profound effects on Sudan's environment and social landscape. In mining regions, the rapid growth of artisanal operations transformed previously remote or rural areas into crowded settlements. Environmental degradation became widespread. Land cleared for mining altered local ecosystems. Water sources were strained by increased use and, in some areas, contaminated by mining byproducts. Agricultural patterns shifted as people abandoned fields to pursue opportunities in the mining sector, reducing food production and straining local economies. Social structures also changed. Traditional authorities struggled to maintain order in rapidly growing mining camps. Disputes over land and access to resources increased. Economic inequality deepened as wealth concentrated in the hands of those tied to armed groups or influential networks, while others continued to live in precarious conditions. Generational experiences diverged sharply. Older populations witnessed the erosion of familiar ways of life, while younger individuals navigated a landscape shaped by uncertainty and the constant lure of leaving home to seek opportunity in distant mining settlements. Where conflict overlapped with mining, communities faced further disruption. The presence of armed groups created environments where ordinary people had little influence over local conditions. Movement became restricted, essential services fluctuated, and long-term planning became nearly impossible. Yet within these challenges, communities displayed resilience, supporting one another through informal networks, local cooperation, and shared efforts to endure the pressures that surrounded them. Their ability to adapt became one of the few stable constants in a landscape marked by rapid and often destabilizing change. In the current era, Sudan remains caught in a web of intersecting conflicts that stretch from cities to remote desert outposts. Rival armed forces vie for territorial control, political legitimacy, and strategic advantage. Civilians bear the weight of instability as access to necessities fluctuates and displacement continues. Gold remains at the center of the conflict's economic engine. Both sides view access to mineral wealth as essential for sustaining operations and strengthening their positions. The competition extends beyond the mines themselves, to airports, border points, and the relationships formed with external actors who facilitate the movement of gold into global markets. Attempts to negotiate peace face obstacles rooted in these economic realities. As long as gold provides a steady income for those who control it, abandoning armed conflict becomes challenging. Even when agreements are signed, implementation depends on whether the involved parties believe they can retain access to the resources that underpin their power. International efforts to address the conflict include diplomacy, humanitarian assistance, and sanctions targeting those involved in illicit trade. Yet the global nature of the gold market makes the issue difficult to contain. These networks extend through multiple countries and financial systems, making them resistant to quick dismantling. Amidst these challenges, communities continue to demand stability and representation. Civil society groups, youth organizations, and local leaders advocate for solutions centered on accountability and equitable governance. Their efforts highlight a vision for Sudan that contrasts sharply with the conflict-driven models that have dominated recent decades. The future remains uncertain, but the determination of these communities offers a foundation for long-term recovery if political conditions allow. Sudan's modern conflict, stretching from the outbreak of violence in Darfur in 2003 to the present day, is a story shaped by the interplay between long-standing grievances and the allure of newfound wealth. The country's gold reserves, which might have formed the basis for national growth, instead became catalysts for rivalries, instruments of political leverage, and commodities traded through unregulated networks that span continents. What began as a regional conflict in Darfur evolved into a national struggle marked by shifting alliances, competing armed forces, and the persistent influence of foreign actors. The disappearance of Sudan's gold into opaque global systems reflects a broader pattern in which the country's natural resources are controlled by those with access to force, rather than those with democratic mandate or community consent. Yet Sudan's story is not solely defined by conflict. It is also the story of resilient communities who continue to seek stability and justice, of citizens whose hopes for peaceful governance recur despite repeated setbacks. and of a nation whose potential remains vast, even in the face of immense adversity. The path to a more stable Sudan will require more than political agreements. It will require the rebuilding of institutions capable of managing the country's wealth transparently, the restoration of trust between communities and leaders, and the reduction of incentives that allow armed groups to profit from conflict. Gold may have fueled decades of struggle, but if placed under fair governance, it could one day play a role in supporting Sudan's recovery. The nation's future will depend on whether its resources become tools for shared prosperity or continue to vanish into the shadows of conflict. Thanks for watching this deep dive into Sudan's complex history, the ongoing conflicts, and the shadow economy built around its gold. The story of Sudan is far from simple. It's a tale of resilience, struggle, and the power of resources to shape both nations and lives. The gold that has fueled wars, enriched powerful actors, and disappeared into international networks shows how wealth can both create opportunities and deepen divisions when governance and transparency are weak. If this video helped you understand the roots and consequences of Sudan's ongoing struggles, consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you don't miss future explorations of history, geopolitics, and the hidden forces that shape nations. Share your thoughts in the comments. How do you think Sudan can reclaim its wealth for its people? And as always, keep questioning, keep learning, and remember that history often holds the key to understanding our present and shaping our future.